come here to chew bubblegum and kick ass. All out of public.
Ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, children of all ages, welcome to the bloviating Zeppelin's Beserk Bobcat Saloon. Belly up to the bar, we've kept you a seat, and it's great to see you back. It looks like Snowball's going to be your bartender tonight. He pours with the best of them, and as you can well see, off to my left, the lava lamp is in fact lighted just for you. We don't water our drinks just like we don't water our conversation. Politics, religion, crime, culture, economics, race, sex, science, law. We talk about it all here at the Saloon. Nothing is sacred. The speech is free, but the booze is not. All that we ask is that you flush the toilet, jiggle the damnable handle, and don't forget to tip your waitress. Tonight, in the Saloon, some rather astounding things for once. If you decide that you want to go to YouTube and go to the SHR Media YouTube channel, or the Sackheads Radio YouTube channel, I should say, you can watch what's going on inside the little SHR Media studio right now, live. This is a first, my very first. Who the hell knows how this is going to come off, because I certainly don't. Well, anyway, it's the bloviating Zeppelin's Beserk Bobcat Saloon. It's the Thursday show, so I call it the Aftermath. And I quantify that on Thursday as all the stuff that I couldn't customarily shove into the bloviating Zeppelin's Beserk Bobcat Saloon on Tuesday, and all the stuff that I couldn't fit into the Sackheads radio show, because after all, Sackhead Sean is in charge. And tonight, in the Aftermath, we have a special guest. We're going to be having Kel Fritzy at the bottom of the hour. We're going to have a break at the bottom of the hour after the first segment, and Kel's going to be calling in. And then you might think that perhaps we're going to talk about Islam. I know, that's a shock. It's a shocker. But I'd say it's going to be true. Let's turn the microphones to the, there we go. Now the headphones are better. Now I can hear, even though I have tinnitus like a son of a gun. In any event, welcome. Welcome to chat. Welcome to the SHR Media Network. Thanks for listening. And now I can actually say thanks for watching. All right? So, there wasn't a hell of a lot that happened today, was there? After all? Of course not. Except one little teeny tiny sort of thing. President Trump decided that he was going to take the United States out of the Paris climate talks. And then, after that, let the pants-shitting hysteria begin. And it began. Most definitely. And trust me, it was all that. Oops, you sons of guns, wrong cut. Okay, we're not going to do that. This is a great way to start the Saloon, isn't it? Anyway, let's go to the first article about this, and about President Trump. I was elected. This is from the Post-Gazette. I was elected to represent the citizens of Pittsburgh, not Paris, so Trump pulls out of the Paris Climate Agreement. President Donald Trump said Thursday he was withdrawing the U.S. from the Paris Climate Agreement, striking a major blow to worldwide efforts to combat climate change and distancing the country from many allies abroad. He said the U.S. would try to renegotiate re-entry on better terms. As of today, the United States will cease all implementation of the non-binding Paris Accord. And yes, non-binding it was. There is, I believe, an audio cut for this, and let's see just what Mr. Trump had to say. Unless you're going to mess me up again, of course.
The United States will withdraw from the Paris Climate Accord Thank you. This agreement is less about the climate and more about other countries gaining a financial advantage over the United States.
Bingo. Why was it, you have to ask, that all the people in Europe, Merkel, Macron, were all butthurt when Trump came over? And he wanted them to pay their fair share. This is about the fleecing of the United States of America. Paying your fair share, now that's something evil and oppressive because it comes out of President Trump's mouth. And to make matters worse, oh my God, now he's saying that he's pulling out of the Paris climate talks, treaty rather, because he knows that America once again is going to get hosed.
The rest of the world applauded when we signed the Paris Agreement. They went wild. They were so happy. The United States under the Trump administration will continue to be the cleanest and most environmentally friendly country on earth.
But the problem with that, you see, is that it's evil because we're not being fleeced. We're not being turned upside down and having all the change shaken out of our pockets. And as we all know, Trump called the agreements basically draconian. So, what really are they? They undermine. What it does is it undermines U.S. competitiveness and jobs, because here's the deal. The U.S. economy would lose 6.5 million industrial sector jobs, including 3.1 million manufacturing sector jobs by the year 2040. But hey, that's okay with Europe because they're not European jobs after all, right? And what else did it do? Well, let's see. It created a UN slush fund, that's right, where President Obama decided that he was going to commit $3 billion to the climate change fund without authorization from Congress. Well, if it was so great, why didn't it go through Congress? It was badly negotiated. It imposes unrealistic targets on the U.S. for reducing carbon emissions. And at the same time, it gives China a free pass, no problem. So who's the greatest polluter basically these days? Well, shock of shocks, that would be China. That would be India. The Paris Accord is bad for that, and it accomplishes actually very little. According to MIT research, if every member nation met all of their commitments through this century, the impact on the climate would be just about damn near negligible. And yet, you're talking billions. Well, if you're talking, for example, about Gore, then you're talking trillions. Because President, that's a bad slip-up. Al Gore, the inventor of the Internet, wants $15 trillion sunk into climate change. And guess who would manage that? Well, yes, it would be old Al the kitty's pal by himself. Wouldn't you like to have $15 trillion? The U.S. debt right now is $19 trillion, soon to be 20. Oh, let's damn near double that, shall we? Because you know who would pay the bulk of that? That would come out of your pockets. Your pocket. My pocket. The pocket of the American taxpayer. Well, that's what Trump did today. And I have to say, yes, I completely agree with that. But while that was occurring earlier this week, the State Department, the Department of State, run by Rex Tillerson, who's the Secretary of State, the State Department decided that it was going to stab President Trump right in the back by increasing the flow of refugees into the U.S. So, actually, to me, this is more proof that the tick-like, embedded, Obama-obedient, deep state loyalistas continue to subvert, they undermine, they compromise, they diminish, they impair, and sabotage the presidency of Donald Trump, who won his spot not by imperial fiat, but by playing according to the rules. But leftists of the State Department, well, they hate that. That can't be. They hate his policies. They've already said so. They want more refugees, not fewer.
Steadfastly committed to the president's plan to resettle at least 10,000 Syrian refugees in the United States in FY 2016.
Fiscal year 2016. This is a State Department spokesman last year under Obama. This is their goal. This is their job. That's what they wanted to do. They're saying it.
We think we can do this safely and in a way that represents the best of American values, which is accepting these people who are fleeing violence, many of them vulnerable, many of them the victims of this violence, but in a way that ensures the safety and security of the American people.
Yeah, the odd thing is, who are these refugees? Who do we see customarily portrayed as a refugee? Well, that's right. That would be generally combat age young males. Isn't that convenient? Here's from Breitbart.com. Report, Trump administration to nearly double rate of refugee admissions for balance of fiscal year 2017. The New York Times came in and weighed reporting that the State Department will nearly double the rate of refugee admissions to the United States for the balance of fiscal year 2017 from the current rate of 830 per week to 1,500 per week. But, that's, of course, at the behest of President Trump, right? Despite repeated efforts by President Trump to curtail refugee resettlements, the State Department this week quietly lifted the department's restriction on the number of refugees allowed to enter the United States, the Times reported on Friday. The result could be a near doubling of refugees entering the country, from about 830 people a week in the first 3 weeks of this month to well over 1,500 people per week by next month, according to refugee advocates. Tens of thousands of refugees are waiting to come into the United States. The State Department's decision was conveyed in an email on Thursday to the private agencies in countries around the world that help refugees manage the nearly 2-year application process needed to enter the United States. In her email, Jennifer Smith, a department official, wrote that the refugee groups could be bringing people into the United States unconstrained by the weekly quotas that were in place. Maybe not conducted on behalf of the President of the United States, one John Trump. It's unclear if the State Department made this upward adjustment with the knowledge and approval of President Trump. I'm stunned. I'm shocked to hear that was actually said. The Department of Justice, however, was apparently consulted. Really? Really? Just who? Okay. Within the DOJ. Was it from the top via, let's say, Attorney General Jeff Sessions? No one seems to know. A State Department spokeswoman, speaking on the condition of anonymity because she was not authorized to discuss the issue publicly, said the department had consulted the Department of Justice about its refugee quotas and had decided to adjust them. They're just going to do it themselves. Isn't that a great way to have a job? And it involves lots of people and the security of the United States, and you can just make a decision all by yourself. Is this a great country or what? Again, who was consulted? Did this alleged consultation go right into the office of the Attorney General himself? Did it somehow wend its way into the White House? Shock of shocks, I really don't think it did. As of May 24th, refugees have been admitted to the United States in fiscal year 2017, which began on October 1st, 2016. Earlier this week, Breitbart News estimated that if the refugee entry rate continued at the level of 817 per week, the rate of the 4 most recent weeks, The total number of refugees admitted to the United States in fiscal year 2017 by September 30th would be 60,672. Oh, joy. Wait, I've got a question. Do we even know where our current bulk of refugees are, or where they went? How many entered? How many were visa overstays? Of course we don't. Because the Obama administration didn't care. And more pointedly, they didn't want to know.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Ms. Barisi, earlier this week, the chairman of the Homeland Security Committee gave an important speech where he...
By the way, this is a committee where the person representing the folks who should know where all these refugees are going, how many numbers, etc., the stats, she's being spoken to, and she's highly intelligent.
Talked about extremist groups, terrorist groups are trying to exploit the refugee program. So, like Mr. Russell just a few minutes ago, I would like to see if you can give us some numbers, just so this committee and the American people have this information. How many Syrian refugees have entered the United States in the last year?
Sir, I didn't bring any of the refugee numbers with me because I was prepared to talk about visa waiver, but I can certainly have us send that to you.
Do you know how
I'll send that to you. It's an open hearing. I'll send it to you. No problem. She's in charge. She should have this.
many Americans have traveled to Syria in the last year?
I don't have that number on me either.
So you wouldn't know how many Americans have traveled and then returned?
I don't have that number on me.
How many visa waiver program overstays are there currently in the United States?
So
Okay, so click your teeth at the guy, okay?
I didn't bring that number with me.
I didn't bring that number with me.
Ms. Barisi, when I look at the witness list, you got the longest title. Deputy Assistant Secretary, Screening Coordination, Office of Policy, Department of Homeland Security. You got the longest title, and it says Screening Coordination. Now, what is that? What screening are you coordinating? Is that just intra-agency or is that inter-agency?
In other words, you dumb person, why are you testifying before me if you didn't bring shite?
It's both.
It's both, so it's all of that.
I could coordinate cross DHS components.
And the two biggest issues right now that we're dealing with, we had these terrible tragedies, terrible terrorist attacks, and we're talking about the refugee issue and the visa waiver program issue, and you can't give us any numbers on either program?
So I came prepared to talk about the visa waiver program.
And I just asked you how many visa waiver program overstays are there, and you said you don't know.
And she's in charge.
Sir, I don't have a number. Visa waiver program.
So when I ask you how many visa overstays of the visa waiver program may have traveled to Syria before they got here, do you know that number?
Sir, if visa waiver program national has a citizen of a visa waiver program country rather has traveled to Syria, Iraq, or a conflict zone, and they're considered a foreign fighter, that VW
Not asking
country,
that. I'm
as a
saying
result,
someone
shares
from
that
Great
information
Britain.
to us.
Someone from Great Britain.
Okay, stop. She's given him everything except what he's asking for. What?
To the United States on a visa waiver program, and they're now on overstay. Do we know if that person who's here today, maybe they're not even an overstay, do we know if that person has been to Syria before they came to the United States? Do we know that? I mean, I know this is what our bill that we just passed earlier this week is trying to get to. I'm asking, do we know that fact or that information now?
So that's why we have the IC involved, and there's an intelligence assessments, and we use.
I wasn't asking that. I was.
She's again refusing to answer the questions which are blunt and to the point. Basically, do you know how to do your job, and are you doing it?
We know that. Do you know the number?
I don't know the number, but that's why I'm trying to.
But we have. Do we have people who are in that category I just described? Come from a visa waiver program country, may have traveled, they're here today, and may have been.
Okay, stop. I've had enough of this guy, because it goes on for at least another 2 or 3 minutes, just like that. Just like that. So these are the same fucktards that are going to be running and increasing the refugee resettlement program. Wonderful. Absolutely brilliant. Well, let's look at the numbers, okay? I'll wager that you had no idea this great a flood was occurring right under our very noses. That's 45,000 refugees, air quotes, okay, into the U.S. before the end of the 2017 federal fiscal year. Well, what's a federal fiscal year? A federal fiscal year starts on October 1st and it runs to the last day of September. Translated, what that means is there's still a lot of fiscal year 2017 remaining to jam up with more Muslim refugees. And the State Department says, yeah, oh yeah, we absolutely.
When it comes to refugee resettlement and the refugee crisis more generally, our first priority is to safeguard the American people. But at the same time, we must and we will
safeguard the American people. But at the same time, okay, but at the same time means that it's equal. It's equivalent. So we're going to sacrifice U.S. security in a nutshell. Yeah.
continue to provide refuge to the vulnerable, which has been a bedrock of our country for centuries. Over the last several months, we've heard divisive and hateful rhetoric in all corners of the world, including the United States, that's conflated refugees with violent extremists.
Really? You're going to be so stupid and you're going to go there?
And demonize those fleeing persecution, violence, and terrorism.
Yeah, you know what? Let's put it this way, dude. Let's change all these refugees, let's change their religion, and let's call them Buddhists, all right? They're peaceful people. Would you have a problem? No. I have a problem with people who want to kill us. Oh, that'd be mostly Muslims.
Our ultimate success in the fight against violent extremism will be determined by our ability to hold fast to the very values the terrorists oppose, our capacity for reason, for wisdom, and for compassion. I returned to Paris just a month ago, and I met again with that same group that I saw just after the Charlie Hebdo attacks. Latifah wasn't there, and the reason was because she was in Washington, where Secretary Kerry announced her as one of the 2016 International Women of Courage Award winners. Right. Mr. Chairman, members of this committee, many of you in this room have been vital leaders in countering extremism, including through the foreign assistance appropriations.
Okay, now he just gets into more government tech speak. And I'm not interested in that. Okay, but you want stats, costs. How about this, where Representative Scott DeGeris speaks to Department of Homeland Security and State Department officials over the dangers of allowing refugees from Syria into the United States without the ability to properly vet them, including their likely terror ties.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Mrs. Richard, could you, is it your understanding that the President still intends to bring about 10,000 Syrian refugees into the country this year?
Yes, sir.
Could you tell the American taxpayer approximately what it costs per refugee per year?
Thank you. Someone who's actually considering the price tag, the cost to the American taxpayer, you, me, thank you.
To bring them here?
I don't have a per refugee cost. The overall program, though, is when you add together the costs of the State Department, Department of Homeland Security, and Health and Human Services that provides assistance to the states to help refugees once they're here, is close to $1 billion.
Close to $1 billion. I've got a great idea. Let's increase that. When we can't even take care of our own homeless on our own streets in America, in a nation where we can't take care of our own veterans who have served us with duty, honor, and loyalty, and we're going to push them aside for people like this? The answer is in one word, yes.
I'd heard a number about 84,000 per refugee. Does that?
$84,000 per refugee. What would happen if you took roughly that amount of money and you decided that you were going to spend it on men and women who had served this country already? I wonder what kind of a dent that might put into the homeless population, and how many veterans could be taken care of with $84,000.
That sound reasonable?
I'll have to double check that. I didn't have that.
Okay. What percentage of the 10,000 refugees would be fighting age men?
Thank you. Just what I said. Who are the people that we see coming, flooding into Europe? Because these are the same people that are the, air quote, refugees that they're talking about in the State Department that they quietly decided to open the floodgates on. Young males of fighting age.
So far, we are putting a priority on bringing people who are the most vulnerable. So we have only brought 2%, so far only 2% of the ones we've brought, the Syrians we've brought, are fighting age men who are traveling without any family. So it'd be a...
Mm-hmm. Right. Why do the pictures, the photographs that I see, counter that?
Slightly, it would be a higher percentage in terms of fighting age men who are traveling with family. But the 2% number you may have heard is the ones who come as single without family, attachment or ties.
I would just hope that next time America gets attacked, that our fighting age men don't want to resettle somewhere else. I hope they would stay and fight for our freedom. Mr. Bergen, you said about 20 million people come on the visa waiver program each year. Or Burson, I'm sorry.
Boom.
Yes, sir.
Okay, and did I hear that about 400,000 overstay?
That's in the range of the estimate.
Okay. Let's play that number again. Because you're talking about increasing all these people. Does anyone care or give a shite about the people that are already here? Listen to this again.
About 400,000 overstay. Mr. Bergen, you said about 20 million people come on the visa waiver program each year. Or Burson, I'm sorry.
Yes, sir.
Okay, and did I hear that about 400,000 overstay?
That's in the range of the estimate made. Yes, sir.
Okay, what are the repercussions for overstaying
yes, sir.
your visa?
So if it has two, one potentially legal and one in terms of your attempt to come back in to the country after using the ESTA. So I indicated there is a Immigration Customs Enforcement unit.
Okay, I got to stop this one too, because as you can see, the purpose for putting these cuts in here is because these are baboons. These are government baboons that couldn't give a shite less about you. They certainly couldn't care about your dollars. And they sure as shit don't care about the homeless or American veterans. How about some more statistics, huh? A total of 38,901 Muslim refugees entered the U.S. in fiscal year 2016, making up almost half, 46%, of the nearly 85,000 refugees who entered the country in that period, according to a Pew Research Center analysis of data from the State Department's Refugee Processing Center. That means the U.S. has admitted the highest number of Muslim refugees in any year since data on self-reported religious affiliations first became publicly available in 2002. But wait, your State Department wants more. Opponents of the federal refugee resettlement program vigorously criticized the reported change in the Trump administration's refugee admissions policy for fiscal year 2017. Well, yeah. Stunning news. Trump's State Department opens the floodgates. Refugee admissions will explode in coming weeks. Ann Corcoran wrote at Refugee Resettlement Watch on Saturday. Correct? Betraying the voters who elected Donald Trump, the Department of State slipped the news to the contractors on Thursday, who then slipped the news to the New York Times just as you were packing up for the beach or getting ready for a family barbecue, using the federal government's favorite holiday weekend trick to bury the news. Correct. Absolutely correct. But, oh wait, as you well know, and I got about, okay, tell you what, I'm going to have to come back to this because it's time for a break. And I believe that when we come back, we're going to have Kill Fritzy. I've set everything up with crossed fingers, so to speak. And tell you what, let's take that break and let's see if Kill calls in. Thank you for listening to the Bloviating Zeppelin's Beserk Bobcat Saloon. It's Thursday. It's June 1st, the year of our Lord 2017. And because it's Thursday, you're listening to the Aftermath on the SHR Media Network.
Conservative media done right. You're listening to the SHR Media Network.
Breaking news. According to the latest report coming out of SHR Media, a merchandise store to support both the Reaver of Common Sense and SHR Media has just been unleashed to the general public. Be forewarned that this site can be contagious and numerous items can be purchased to support the best news programming. Go to Reaver.one website and click on the store link to check out the merchandise.
Hello, I'm Matt, a student at Hillsdale College. Here is Hillsdale President Larry Arnn on the continuing relevance of the Constitution.
Many argue today that the Constitution is outdated because it addresses problems peculiar to the 18th century. Some parts of the Constitution do read rather quaintly. Consider the injunction against titles of nobility in Article 1, Section 9 of the Constitution. But is that so outdated? The purpose of the injunction is to prevent the government granting special privileges to some for partisan reasons. This strikes at the heart of the rule of law. The crony capitalism so common today is a place where the government bestows favors and tax dollars on some businesses to give them a leg up over others. This is exactly the kind of thing the Constitution was meant to prohibit. The Constitution is not so outdated after all.
This Constitution Minute was brought to you by Hillsdale College. To join the national conversation on the Constitution, go to constitutionminute.com.
Times are dark. The people misled by corrupt politicians, lied to by establishment media, and deceived by the false messages of Islam. A nation in confusion needs a guide. It needs a man with a cane. I'm Dave Milner. Join me on Spreaker, SHR Media, High Plains Talk Radio, Live Rebooting Liberty, and YouTube for a unique brand of commentary on the unpleasant blind guy. Because truth is not always pleasant.
In a world controlled by corrupt politicians,
You got a business. That you didn't build that.
a team of ordinary men emerge from the ashes to give voice to the voiceless and hope to the hopeless. Sackhead Sean,
Dude, I'm not saying cow from a stupid program.
Sackhead Clint,
All good friends of ours usually show up drunk.
also starring Sako as the producer.
I'm a little bit drunk, 'cause I'm drinking.
They are the Sackheads Radio Show. Every Wednesday at 8 p.m. Pacific on shrmedia.com.
Beware, the Jersey Takeover is here. Every Monday through Friday, 11 a.m. to 1 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. You can catch the Reaver of Common Sense show, hosted by Jersey Joe, right here on shrmedia.com and highplainsdailynews.com. Only Jersey can deliver hell like no one else, so consider this your fair warning.
Conservative media done right. You're listening to the SHR Media Network.
In a world where insanity reigns supreme and safety pin manufacturers are running out of metal for the diapers of the leftists, it's comforting to know an ancient, fat, long-haired, bearded reprobate has your mind in mind. Ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, children of all ages, broadcasting behind enemy lines in occupied California. And despite every attempt by the SHR Media Network to revoke his shameless contract, we return to the bloviating Zeppelin's Beserk Bobcat Saloon.
Ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, children of all ages, welcome to the bloviating Zeppelin's Beserk Bobcat Saloon, and welcome back. It is Thursday, it's June 1st, the very first day of June. That means half the year is gone already, so the big question is, where the hell did it go? However, we have, as soon as I turn up a few things, we have tonight for you something very special. We have a special guest who did in fact call in, which means that, for God's sake, thank God Skype for working. You're working now. So we have, without any further ado, we have Kel Fritzy on the line. And Kel, it's great to hear you. How are you this evening?
BC, first of all, let me say it is an honor and a pleasure to be here. I have been admiring you from afar, and to speak with you mano a mano is a wonderful opportunity for me. I'm doing fine. How are you?
Well, let's see. White Mamba in chat says, I agree with that description of BZ, but BZ isn't a reprobate. Really? Really? I've lived a long time to try to be one, and now you're even taking that away from me. How sad is that, really? I'd like to say hello to Sackhead Sean. He's in chat. Mike is in chat. Kel is in chat. This is miraculous. Kel is in chat, and she's talking on the phone. How fabulous is that? And Mike is here as well. And at the top of the hour, I bet a whole bunch of other people are going to be coming in, brought in by Mary Brockman. But Kel, thank you so kindly for coming on. But for those people in chat or who may be listening live or maybe they're tuning in on the podcast later, could you tell us who you are, what you do, that you have a radio show, where is it, and by the way, where are you from? Where are you right now?
Absolutely. I hail from Canada. I am in Ontario. I'm just outside of Toronto, Ontario. And I am living the nightmare, the Trudeau nightmare right now. But I can delve into that if we have the time. But in a nutshell, my name is Kel Fritzy. I do have a couple of radio programs. I am fortunate in that I conduct the RFB radio program, courtesy of Block Talk Radio, soon to be picked up by another network. And I am also part of the Global Patriot Radio Network, where I am IAW. IAW being Infidels Are Watching.
Gee, what other network would you be working for? Go ahead, you can say it.
Oh, I am so excited. I am going to be working for TEX, and that is the Exceptional Conservative Network, starting in June, the middle of June. I am so excited. And not only that, but I will be producing for the prolific Ron Edwards, the Ron Edwards Experience. I am so excited that people are having faith in me to, carry their shows. But I have been producing a lot of radio programs for the last 6 years. I produced for English Defense League radio show, and they are flying like you wouldn't believe. They're wonderful. What they're doing today is absolutely phenomenal in terms of getting out the message within the counter-jihad movement. And this is primarily what I do. I talk about a lot of things, people. I talk about American politics, Canadian politics, politics within Australia, the United Kingdom, everywhere. But I do primarily concentrate on the issues of Islam, because I think that this is the greatest threat facing our Western democracies today. So I take my shows, though, in a clinical, factual, and coherent fashion. And I am not, by any stretch of the imagination, just pulling stories off the headlines. As a matter of fact, I'm the one behind the headlines in doing my research and explaining to you exactly why Islam is totally incompatible with our democracies and why Islam will not be able to assimilate within our constitutions. I try to explain it in a coherent fashion, like I said, but I also talk about the atrocities that Islam bestows upon us. And you were talking there, BC, about what happened in Manchester nearly 2 weeks ago. What happened in, Westminster at the end of March. So yes, I will bring this up, but I try to discuss in a manner in which I'm not engaging in outrage, because engaging in outrage just loses your audience. Your audience shows up to listen to your program to find out what's the facts behind this. They want to know, what makes Islam tick,
now,
right?
I can't be outraged? I'm
outraged. Oh, believe me.
I'm outraged
okay.
that I can't be outraged.
You know what? I have something on my desk. It's an illegal item. I'm not supposed to have this in Canada because, as you know, It's bad enough we don't even have the Second Amendment. We don't even have the First Amendment. But I have something illegal in my office, and it is my police baton. And when I engage in
Nice.
outrage on my show, and yes, I do, I bang my desk, and I scare my cats.
Well, tell you what, I have lined up a series of topics that I hope in the next. Let me ask you this originally. I was going to see if you could be on for an hour. And so
Sure.
just confirming that you have an hour. And I'll tell you what, if this thing really starts rocking and rolling, if you don't mind, if you have the time, I'm all for just letting this thing buzz on till the end of the show, depending on how you feel, for example. So if you want to do just an
I am
hour,
at your avail.
that's cool. If you want to do from now till the rest of the show, because trust me, what I've done right here in my laptop is I've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12 tabs set up on separate topics, including various audio cuts of people with specifically regarding Islam, and 2 particular cuts involving Canada that I'd very much like to have you chat in. So what I was hoping to do with the show tonight is, and over the telephone you'll be able to hear what's being played, I'd like to play various audio cuts, stop occasionally, and then I'd like to have your input on what's going, not just in Canada, but with some of the other audio cuts and some of the other topics that I have for the rest of the show. That's kind of how I'd like to handle things, if that's okay with you.
Like I said, I am at your avails.
Let me tell you this, though. You are loved in chat. White Mamba, who just came into chat, is saying a lot of really nice things about you. He said that you are absolutely a pro, that it's good to see you behind the mic, and he's got some really nice things to say about you in chat. So thanks, White Mamba. Appreciate that, and thanks for being in chat. One thing, here's a particular topic that I happened to come across, and it's by, do you know, have you heard of a woman by the name of Faith Goldie?
I am meeting Faith Goldie for breakfast on the weekend. Absolutely. I love Faith Goldie.
Okay.
She is of the Rebel Media.
Well, I'll tell you what, it's then apparent that, yes, you do know Faith Goldie. I have a cut to play for you that I'll stop on occasion, and she's asking the question, is there white genocide in Canada? Let's listen.
If I asked you which Western country you think is experiencing the fastest rate of ethnic change, which would you guess? Britain, France, Sweden, Denmark, Belgium, the US. All of those answers, well, they'd be wrong. Because according to international demographers, it's actually Canada that occupies the top spot for fastest rate of ethnic change in the West. Now, immigration is not nearly as openly discussed here as it is, say, in the US or in Europe.
Okay, is that true? Do Canadians they don't want to talk about immigration?
Absolutely. Canadians are too reticent. We're too nice, and we are too accommodating. And it's because that we have grown up on this ideology of multiculturalism, which was technically introduced into Canada in 1982. And so when you look at how many years have transpired since then, we have an entire generation that thinks that all cultures are equal. And to a degree, many are compatible to the Canadian culture. There is one culture, unfortunately. They follow a certain doctrine called Sharia law. That is incompatible. But the thing is that Canadians are ignoring that. And the thing is, Canadians have been fed a bill of goods. We have to understand, though, that we are raising a generation after generation of those that are totally compliant with the ideology of multiculturalism. And yes, Canada is indeed engaging in its own genocide, whether it be white genocide or black genocide, indigenous genocide. This is what I prefer, is that Canadians are engaging in an indigenous genocide. I am an Indigenous Canadian. I was born and raised here. I belong in this country. I'm natural to this country. And I fear for my fellow Canadians in that, yes, we are going to be a disappearing culture, probably within 20 years, if we continue to invite certain elements into this country.
Let's listen to her a little bit longer and see what she has to say. It's about an 8-minute cut total.
However, it's something that I talk about a lot, but usually I discuss the cultural and socioeconomic effects of migration, legal or otherwise. Today, though, I just want to talk about demographics. Canada is a country of some 35 million people, and each year we accept roughly 300,000 immigrants. That means our per capita immigration rate is about double that of the US and Germany, while we even outrank immigrant welcome jurisdictions like Sweden. Meantime, 4 out of 5 of Canada's immigrants are visible minorities. I live in a city, Toronto, where the term majority minority is used a lot to describe the ethnic makeup of our metropolis, i.e. the majority of our population here is made up from people from visible minorities. And considering how many immigrants arrive each year, where 4/5 are visible minorities, and how obsessed our Prime Minister is with the quotas and multicultural virtue signaling, well, you'd think that our whole country is majority minority, right? Not even close. Actually, according to recent national household survey data collected in the country, roughly 76% of Canada's population is white. That's a 4% drop in 5 years, which followed a 3.3% drop from the 5-year span before that.
And she makes an excellent point. Now, your population is 32 million. In the United States, last I heard, it's about 320 million or so, right around in there, over the 300 million mark. So percentile, in terms of the percentile of immigrants that you have coming in as opposed to your population, what she's saying, and I'm sure what you're saying too, is that's a big damn dent.
It absolutely is. And getting back to what I was saying earlier about being an Indigenous Canadian, I know that Faith Goldie is referring to white Canada. And yes, she has a complete valid point. We are a Judeo-Christian country, and this country, Canada, it was built on Judeo-Christian values, and it was built upon the backs of Europeans. And we made this country great because of the European values that we adopted and that we incorporated and that we imported. And we are having a real problem with elements of multiculturalism. Like I said, there are a lot of beautiful cultures out there that have decided that they want to join us in Canada. They want to join the party and they want to assimilate. We've never had problems with for example, anybody from sub-Sahara Africa before it was overrun with Islam. We never had any problems with those that came from China. We've never had any problems with those that came from Japan. They were all here to assimilate. But because of multiculturalism, we have to treat everybody, it seems, with a different narrative in that your culture is just as valuable. And I think that this is emboldening, in a sense, in that we are losing our Judeo-Christian European identity. It's frightening to me. And because of official multiculturalism that was adopted in Canada, is that there are other more nefarious ideologies reaching our shores, and they are making demands upon us now, huge demands.
Well, certainly, because they're entitled.
They're entitled, exactly.
And let me guess, Trudeau's telling them that they're entitled.
Oh, Trudeau is telling Justin Trudeau, and like I tell everybody, I have a real issue trying to put a Prime Minister and Justin Trudeau in the same sentence. I cannot do it. The same way you folks could not put a president in the same sentence as Barack Hussein Obama. I cannot do it. But yes, the so-called leader of this great nation is ensuring that you are welcome here. All Canadians love you. You are part of us. You are part of the fabric. No, there are some elements that are not part of the fabric. The fabric is being torn apart by some elements that will not fit into the assimilation mode that Canada was built upon. There are elements out there that would rather see us destroy ourselves from within. And they see the weak underbelly of Canadians. And getting back to what I said earlier about Canadians being rather reticent and quiet people, and yes, we are. Some person belligerently stomps on my foot on the subway. I'm the one who turns around and apologizes. That's Canada. But
that's an interesting point.
But we do have elements, and they're making quite the noises, and they're making political noises. When Justin Trudeau was what I consider fraudulently elected to assume the helmanship of Parliament as the leader, it was because it was fixed. It wasn't illegal, but it was fixed. He was wooing certain audiences, and those certain audiences responded resoundingly and ensured his election success. And now they are coming back, and they want their payback. Okay, Trudeau, we did this for you. Now you are going to return the favors that you promised to us behind closed doors.
Man,
I think
I'm
they
sure
were behind closed doors.
Yeah, I'm sure they are. I bet they very much are. It's payback.
And he's very beholden. Yeah. Yeah. And what we're experiencing is that the political entities are really coming forth. And I'm sure that people have been hearing about this Motion 103 in Canada.
Oh, you beat
and
me.
And this was a motion.
You beat me. I'll tell you what, if you're ready to go over there, we've got more of Faith Goldie, but since you mentioned that, yeah, the MPs passed M103, the Motion 103, I think it was last week, wasn't it?
It was in April, yeah.
Oh, April.
It would be about 3-4 weeks ago, yeah.
Okay.
So there you go.
Alrighty. But there's an article that I read at thenationalpost.com, and it said MPs pass M103 Thursday, even as new poll says most Canadians would vote down anti-Islamophobia motion. So, can you tell us what the hell is M103?
Absolutely. This was a motion that was put forth by a liberal backbencher. Her name is Khalid. Her last name is Khalida. And she decided that it was a good idea to put forward a motion to stop discrimination against minority groups. But what she put in this motion was that this would primarily, Iqra Khalid is her full name. What she decided that it would be a great idea that we concentrate on the back blow that Muslims seem to experience because Muslims are so persecuted. Oh, there's a terror attack and Muslims are persecuted. And so she decided that this Motion 103 would be a really good idea. Now, she tried to sugarcoat it and incorporate all minorities, Jewish peoples, Christian peoples, and it didn't wash, though. It was specifically designed for any dialogue, any coherent conversation to speak about Islam in particular in this country as illegal. Now, Canada, unlike the United States, we don't have a First Amendment. We don't have freedom of speech. We have freedom of expression. But this would interfere with even our freedom of expression to even discuss the issues of Islam and the infiltration and the encroachment of Islam in its hurtful ways, which it is doing in every Western country as we know it.
The finest example that I could think of that, and until this came to its forefront, I had no idea that that's sort of how Canada was oriented, but I remember Mark Steyn was taken to court, was he not, for writing an article in a magazine. And
yes, he was.
He's not a Canadian. He doesn't live there.
A few people know this, but Mark Steyn was born in Canada.
Oh, okay. All right. I take it back.
He didn't live here. He didn't live here for very long.
Yeah.
Mark Stein,
Because
Mark
he's in the
Stein
U.S.
was born
now.
in Canada. And he moved back to England with his mother when he was 4 years old. And that's why Mark Stein has that beautiful, beautiful British accent. But yes, he is residing in the United States. And yes, Mark Stein was taken to task. He wrote a book called America Alone.
Right.
And if you don't have that book, by the way, people, please do get it, because
I do have
this
it.
is an important read. Oh, very good. Yes. So Maclean's Magazine, which is the national news magazine in Canada.
That's the one.
They published an excerpt.
That's the one I was thinking of, Maclean's Magazine.
Yeah, and they published an excerpt from his book, America Alone. Well, the Muslim Student Association here in Canada and the Muslim Association, they used to be CARE Canada, but they CARE, Council on American Islamic Relations Canada. They are now known as something else because they wanted to separate themselves from CARE in the United States due to the Holy Land Foundation and all that, right? But all the same, they took umbrage to this excerpt that Maclean's Magazine published, and they said, you know what? We want to rebut this, and we want to publish our opinions about this. And Maclean's Magazine, ladies and gentlemen, this is not Canadian Broadcasting Corporation. This is a private enterprise. And Maclean's Magazine can say yes or no. And Maclean's Magazine said, no, we don't care for your rebuttal. We are publishing this excerpt because we invited Mark Stein to do so. And, well, they took him to what we call the Human Rights Commission. Now, we nickname it the Human Rights Tribunal because that's exactly what it is. It's nothing more than a tribunal. And so they took Mark Stein to the Human Rights Commission. They took Maclean's Magazine to the Human Rights Commission. And they nearly won the case. Now, what happens when you are a complainant with the Human Rights Commission, or the tribunal preferably, is that you could file a complaint, and if the tribunal decides to hear it, you get yourself a lawyer, and you can bring in your witnesses, and the government will pay for it. But the person with whom you're lobbying a complaint, they have to pay out their own monies, and they have to hire their own lawyer, and they have to hire for their own expert witnesses, and they have to defend themselves. And the Human Rights Tribunal is so biased towards liberalism, it would make your head spin. It's not only Mark Stein that was set upon by the Human Rights Tribunal on the complaint of Muslims. It was also Ezra Levant. And Ezra Levant, he used to be the proprietor of the Western Standard magazine, and he was the first magazine in North America to publish wholeheartedly and without inhibition those Danish cartoons. Everybody's familiar with the Danish cartoons. You know, the most famous one, I think, is, you know, with Muhammad wearing a turban with the, you know, the bomb in it.
Yes.
And Ezra Levant, who is now the founder of Rebel Media, in fact, when he had Western Standard magazine, he published all of these Danish cartoons. Nobody else would touch them. And if anybody in mainstream media published, quote unquote, those cartoons, they were pixeled out. Well, Ezra Levant of the then Western Standard, he published them. He was taken to the Human Rights Tribunal. This cost him over $1 million in defense, whereas the Muslims who lobbied the complaint got everything for free. And it is unbelievable. If Ezra Levant, it cost him so much money. He lost his publication because he couldn't afford it. He lost his business.
I have a question for you when we come back.
A lot of people.
I have a question for you when we come back. We got to go to a break. But the question is this, and I'm going to give some time to think about it. Where does that end? Where does it end? Do articles that I write in my blog that somehow get read in Canada, does that mean that I'm subject to something similar to that? Ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, we are talking to Cal Fritzy. And we're speaking about all makes and manners models of Islam. You're listening to the Bloviating Zeppelin's Beserk, Bobcat, Saloon on the SHR Media Network. Please come right back.
Conservative media done right. You're listening to the SHR Media Network.
Hey, it's Sean from the Sackheads Radio Show, also one of the owners here at the SHR Media Network. Are you opinionated? Have you ever wanted to do your own show? Have you ever heard somebody like the Sackheads and go, yeah, I could probably do that better? Well, now's your chance. Send me a 5-minute clip at sackheadsradio@gmail.com, and maybe you can be part of the SHR broadcasting team. sackheadsradio@gmail.com.
Times are dark. The people are misled by corrupt politicians, lied to by establishment media, and deceived by the false messages of Islam. A nation looking for direction needs a guide. It needs a man with a cane. I'm Dave Milner. Join me on Spreaker, SHR Media, Pundit Press Radio, and YouTube through the SHR Media page for a different kind of commentary on the unpleasant blind guy. Because the truth is not always pleasant.
In a world controlled by corrupt politicians,
You got a business. That you didn't build that.
a team of ordinary men emerge from the ashes to give voice to the voiceless and hope to the hopeless. Sackhead Sean.
Dude, I'm not saying coffee is stupid, bro.
Sackhead Clint.
All good friends of ours usually show up drunk.
Also starring Sako as the producer.
I'm a little bit drunk, 'cause I'm drinking.
They are the Sackheads Radio Show. Every Wednesday at 8 p.m. Pacific on shrmedia.com.
The Bloviating Zeppelin. He's big-footed enough radio shows to last a lifetime, courtesy of Sean, Clint, Ken, and Jersey Joe. Now it's time for him to waddle on his own 2 feet via the glorious SHR Media. Gird thy loins for the Bloviating Zeppelin's Beserk Bobcat Saloon, coming soon to ossicles near you. Excelsior.
Conservative media done right. You're listening to the SHR Media Network.
Ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, children of all ages, welcome back to the Bloviating Zeppelin's Beserk Bobcat Saloon. It's Thursday night, so it's the aftermath, also known as All the Shite, putting into this show that I couldn't fit into the Tuesday show, or even on Sackheads from yesterday. And tonight we have the distinct honor of speaking to Kel Fritzy. She's out of Canada, and she has a great blog, a great radio show, and Kel Fritzy, so thank you kindly for being and appearing on the show tonight. I greatly appreciate it. Thank you for being here.
Oh, well, thank you for having me. It's my honor and pleasure.
We were talking about...
Yeah.
We were talking about some things that had occurred recently with Mark Steyn and Canada's tribunal, so to speak. And I had a question for you before we left, and that's this. If that can happen to Mark Steyn, what's to say that it can't happen to other people who somehow have their media slip into the Canadian conscious? How does that work?
Now, you know what? I'm so glad that you posed that question earlier, and that's a darned good one. You tape your program out of the United States. I tape RFB radio and IAW radio out of the United States. And so we are free of the clutches of the Canadian speech laws, as it were. If your show is heard in Canada, they can't touch you because you're taping out of the United States. Thus, you are protected under the Constitution. You're protected under the First Amendment. But if you came to Canada and say that somebody wanted you to come to Toronto, right, and deliver a speech, maybe at some event, whatever, you might be denied a visa to enter Canada because of your resume as that of a critic and a person that is versed in the issues of global issues in particular, of course, but issues that maybe, I don't know, maybe you'll want to talk about the issues of Islam and how it affects us globally. You could be denied entry into the country of Canada for that. Now, if you were to enter the country and you were able to deliver your speech, say at the Canadian Jewish Congress or whatever, whatever you said, if there was somebody in the audience that had umbrage to what you said, they could file a complaint with you, and then you would be in trouble with the Canadian authorities if it was worthy of investigation, if they thought that you were inciting hatred, for example. And this is why we come right back to Motion 103, is that if Motion 103 passes, it not only affects Canadians, but it would affect speakers internationally who want to enter the country and talk about the issues that are rather contentious.
Okay, so when you were saying that, that brought up immediately this question too. All right, this may be Captain Obvious right now, but am I guessing that you've decided that you're going to broadcast out of the United States? Because if you were to say the exact same things in Canada, then the repercussions would be incredible, and you could find yourself subject to this tribunal.
Captain Obvious. Captain Obvious saves the day. Yes, indeed. This is why I do tape my shows out of the United States. And that if they are carried in Canada, they cannot touch me. Now, if I spoke in Canada at a forum, then yes, I would be under a certain, scrutiny, shall I say. But because I'm protected under your First Amendment, amen, because I do take my shows out of the United States, and thank God that the Exceptional Conservative and SHR Media and all of you fine folks out there are out of the United States. I can speak as freely as I like. But if I were to be invited, say, on a Canadian broadcast, say I was asked to talk about the issues of Islam, say on CFRB or News Talk 1010, I would be shut down immediately. People will not touch this issue in Canada because they are truly terrified of the fact that if you speak out ill, this is going to not go well for you. And this is why we are putting together the Canadian Million March. We are protesting Motion 103 because if Motion 103 is passed, it passed as a motion. And what that means is that Parliament, the Liberal majority Parliament, they passed Motion 103 for study. And we don't know who's on this committee to study Motion 103. We don't even understand exactly what anti-Islamophobia means. This Motion 103 makes absolutely no sense because this is the crux of Motion 103. It calls on the government people, to condemn Islamophobia in all forms of systemic racism and religious discrimination, and is asking the government to recognize the need to quell the increasing public climate of hate and fear. And it is requesting the Commons Heritage Committee to study how the government could develop a government-wide approach to reducing or eliminating systemic racism and religious discrimination, including Islamophobia.
See, now that's what I've known.
Go ahead.
You Canadians are so outrageously hateful. When I think of hate, I think first and foremost, I think of a Canadian wrapped in a maple leaf, holding a Molson and being hateful with a scowl of a frown on their face because everyone knows you damn Canadians are so hateful. So I think they've nailed you, quite frankly.
And a moose in everybody's backyard. Come on. And yes, we have canoes.
Yes.
I know. Do.
Yeah.
You would think that.
You're incredibly
it's not
hateful
like that
people.
with these, Well, apparently, according to Equa Khalid, the backbencher of the Liberal Party of Canada, seems to think that we are just rife with Islamophobia, and we are going to create havoc for the Mohammedans in our midst. It's not like the Mohammedans are not already creating their own mayhem within our midst. It's just that when we speak about it, oh, you can't, because we are determined, according to the Liberal government and Equa Khalid and her motion, that we're collecting data on you, and we're going to provide context for hate crimes, and we're going to make reports, and we're going to engage in needs assessments for impacted communities. Well, like I say, this motion, it passed in the House of Commons, and it is under study. And we'll find out what they come back with in 8 months after their stupid study. And we don't even know who's on the study committee. BC, this is what drives me crazy. Nobody is apprised as to who is on this study. Is there going to be a representative, say, from the New Democratic Party? Is there going to be a representative, like an overseer from the NDP, an overseer from the Conservative Party of Canada? Is there going to be an overseer from the Liberal Party of Canada? Or is this going to be a collection of talking heads from liberal universities? And we don't know what their findings, quote unquote, are going to be. Now, if this comes back from study, it could easily turn into a bill. And that bill would be that it would be a further restriction of our freedom of expression, which means that sites like Rebel Media out of Canada could be shut down. People like Kevin J. Johnston of Freedom Report could be shut down. He's exclusively Canadian, too. It would mean that blogs like Black Pigeon Speaks, exclusively Canadian. His YouTube website could be shut down. I could be shut down if I was taping my show out of Canada. Thank goodness, like I say, I tape out of the United States. I'm protected by you very fine people in America. But this Motion 103 is dangerous. And it is unbelievable to us that Canadians are so hateful that we need a motion to study our Islamophobia? Really?
Got a couple of questions for you. How many terror events have occurred in Canada at the behest of Islam?
You know what? There was one terror attempt, and that was Toronto 18. That was about 7-8 years ago, I think, at this point.
Okay, you're proving my point, and that is this, because I'm going to have a few more questions. The point is this. You guys haven't had, your own 9/11 or a series of bombings, etc. So then what's the point of Motion 103? Because all of a sudden there's massive, rampant Islamophobia? I submit absolutely not. I'd like to quote some things out of this particular article that I was reading. The new poll released Thursday suggests that if the vote on M103 was up to most Canadians, it'd fail. Pollster Angus Reid Institute asked 1,500 Canadians, if you were a member of Parliament, how would you vote on this motion, M103? They found that 42% would vote against it, 29% would vote in favor, 29% were not sure or would have abstained. So the MPs, conservative MPs, said this, and this is a quote, "The word Islamophobia can be used to mean both discrimination against Muslims and criticism of Islamic doctrine or practice. It's important that we do not conflate the two. Religious people deserve legal protections, but religions do not." Conservative MP Garnet Genius said during a Commons debate Tuesday night, people should not discriminate against individuals, but should feel quite free to criticize the doctrine, history, or practice of any religion. Again, Captain Obvious drops in. But you just made my point. Where is all this hateful stuff coming from? Or is it that Islam knows how to work Western society and knows how to accomplish our goals, its goals?
And, the thing is, too, is that that is a brilliant point that you bring up, because there was a petition against that Motion 103. And the gentleman that you cited, it was introduced that if we want to take a look at such, let me see, I'm trying to think of the right word. If we are going to look at so-called hate speech and crimes and everything like that, if they want to introduce Motion 103, then we have to reconsider exactly the wordage of that. And what we have to do is that if we're going to have this Motion 103, it's got to be reworded in a way in which everybody is incorporated against hate speech or hate crimes. Well, the thing is, though, is that it should not have even gone that far, because the whole point is that all religions are protected under our Charter of Rights and Freedoms. We don't need Motion 103. But I do believe, like you said, like you cited, that individuals within a certain religion, of course, deserve all the rights and protections as an individual within Canada and should not be persecuted by other individuals or groups. Absolutely not. And believe me, if there is anybody out there that is even entertaining the idea of harming a person merely because they belong to a certain institution or a religion, even if you do not agree with that religion, then you are nothing more than a hateful person. But there is nothing, absolutely nothing wrong with critiquing an ideology.
No.
Islam is an ideology.
I've said this for a long time. Islam is not a religion. It's a political, cultural, and societal system that is masquerading as a religion.
Absolutely.
Let me see if I can get you to delineate this, however. Some people may not know the difference between, say, a motion and a statute. So can you explain how a motion is not the exact same thing as, say, a statute in a body of law?
Absolutely. Now, this 103, it's a motion, and what it means is that it would be sent to a committee for study. If the a committee comes back and says, yeah, there is an issue with Islamophobia within Canada, if this passes the study committee's sniff test, they can approach Parliament, right? And they can say, yes, there is an issue with Islamophobia. It can then be turned into a bill or statute. It can then be turned into a bill. But that might be a very hard sell, because despite the fact that there is a Liberal majority government, I'm sure that they will toe the Trudeau party line and vote for a bill to be instituted to ensure that there is no criticism of Islam, but they're going to wrap it up in a neat little bow and say all religions, Judaism, Christianity. I'm sure they'll, wrangle that one about. But if it comes back to Parliament, if this study comes back and says, yes, we have found irrefutable proof that there is indeed an issue of discrimination, especially amongst those who follow the doctrine of Islam, it could easily be tabled as a bill. But that bill, it would have to pass 3 readings. Now, the first reading, it will pass because the Liberals in the lower house of Parliament, they control lower house. The second reading would also probably pass as long as we have a Liberal majority government, because, like I say, Trudeau is a dictator, and people are whipped. They are whipped votes that would take place with that. So it might pass second reading. And then it would have to go back to debate on the lower floor, and it might pass third reading. But until a bill is approved in Canada, it would have to be approved by the Governor General, who is our Queen's representative. And he may not approve it. And the thing is, too, is that the opposition parties would demand that the upper house, and that would be the Red Chamber, that would be the Senate, that's our supposed chamber of our sober of second thought up there, the Red Chamber. Sometimes it's funny because we have senators that like to fall asleep during these boring meetings. But okay, getting back, it would take quite a bit for it to be passed as a bill. And I have full confidence that the upper chamber, the Senate, would ignore it and throw it out. And the Governor General of Canada would also throw it out, because this would be a violation of our charters and rights of freedoms to speak openly, coherently, again, I use that word, in that this would be a further curtailment on our ability to be able to speak about the issues that surround us, whether they be political, religious, otherwise. So that's what we're facing right now. So in a nutshell, it's a motion, but if the committee comes back, says, yeah, there's an issue, it could be entertained as being passed as a bill. So motion 103 could easily turn into bill 103, but all the same, like I say, it would be very difficult a sell to the upper chamber and to the Governor General.
Folks, we're speaking to Kel Fritzy in the Saloon tonight. And Kel, what I'd like to do is play a cut for you. It's about 2 minutes long. It has to do with the hijab, and then I'd like your comments on it and your thoughts, because I think this guy is spot on in terms of what he says.
The hijab is a symbol, and it is commitment to Sharia. Watch Bill Warner's video, The Political Side of Hijabs. And Bill Warner is an inspiration to me. His video was an inspiration to me, so I want to give him credit. He inspires so much in all of us that are fighting for freedom. So watch Bill Warner, The Political Side of Hijabs. It's a video that he did on it. And, some of his ideas have inspired this, and I'll refer to some of them. Imagine if I saw somebody in a Ku Klux Klan outfit, or, that dress that they wear, or whatever it is, with the white cape and the hood, and I said, oh, but at least the person's not going to be judged by the way they look anymore. Finally, we're going to counteract this obsession with image. No, that would be ridiculous, because the outfit of the Ku Klux Klan is a statement of hatred. So I'm using this as an analogy here, okay? The hijab is a commitment to Sharia. And what does Sharia say? Sharia says that the kafir is unequal. He should be hated. Allah curses the unbelievers. He curses the kafir. So when you see a hijab, if you want to be in denial and run away right now and just say Jamie's a hateful bigot, you go ahead. But the truth of the matter is that when you see the hijab on a woman, you are being told that you are inferior kafir. The woman in the hijab is also not even allowed to be friends with you, because you're not supposed to make friends with the unbelievers. And you are seen as inferior, because this is a commitment to Sharia. And Bill Warner makes a very important point in his video, The Political Side of Hijabs. He explains the same way the Ku Klux Klan outfit puts an unbridgeable gap between the KKK member and a black person, the same way the hijab separates the Muslim woman and the kafir. This is very important to keep in mind. We need to start telling the truth about it. Let me go on a little bit here. So this is what's being said to you, the kafir, when you see a woman in hijab. Now, what is the fate of the woman in the hijab? We have to be honest. This is a hostage. This is an inmate in a prison. The hijab.
What do you think? That's from Jamie Glassoff, by the way, of the Glassoff gang. Do you have any thoughts about that, Kel?
Well, I certainly do. And he was referring to the hijab in particular. Now, people, the hijab is a head covering and the face is visible. I disagree with it because of the religiosity, quote unquote, behind it, and that women who don the hijab are devout Muslims. There are all sorts of coverings. We have the Almira, we have the Shayla. And the Shayla is a very loose covering that they place over their heads, and it's a loose wrap around their shoulders. We have and that's also known as the shatter as well. But then we're moving into the niqab. And the niqab is the head covering and the covering of the face below the nose. But then we have the most nefarious, and that is the burqa.
Yes.
And the burqa is a complete covering of facial features. And you folks are familiar with women in Afghanistan, the blue burqas that they wear and the little screen. I am willing to deal with the hijab for now. But what Jamie Glasov is talking about, too, is the fact that it is hard to communicate with a person who is hidden behind a veil. It's hard to communicate with a person with whom you can't see their eyes or their facial expressions. And this is, though, it comes right back to the idea that this is war. This is essentially a war outfit, I think, because I'm sorry, folks. People who listen to me know that I'm very hardlined when it comes to the issues of Islam, and so when I see a devout Muslima wearing the war gear, I really don't know how much I'm going to get out of her in terms of honest dialogue about the issues of Islam. And I don't think that she is going to be explaining to me honestly about the Surah and the Hadith and what comes out of the Quran. And I don't think that she will be able to decipher for me chapter 9, verse 29, which is conquer the unbeliever wherever you find them. She certainly wouldn't want to challenge me on chapter 5, verse 28, and chapter 5, verse 23, and leading into 24, and then leading into 25. So when I see a woman wearing what I consider to be war gear, I'm very wary. And I think that Jamie has a really good point in that we have to ensure that Islam is abiding to the rule of law within our respective countries. I have so many issues, in particular with the burqa, the full face covering, the niqab, the partial face covering, the shadar, and the khimar, the partial covering of the face. Well, it's actually full face, but it's the covering of the head. The al-amira and the shalaya, which is the covering of the head, but you can still see their faces. These are devout Muslims, and they are adhering to the laws as outlined in Sharia, as outlined by the perfect man, Muhammad. Muhammad was a warlord, and they are abiding by his every word. So, like I say, Islam is the only entity, political entity, that is incompatible with the West. And I would love to see a ban, in particular, on the burqa. Maybe leave them alone with their head coverings. Leave them alone. At least you can see their faces. But I would like to see that eventually eliminated, too. I mean, the only reason why we wear head covering is because the weather's really cold. Like I wear a scarf over my head, too.
Certainly.
Because, damn, Canada gets really cold, people.
I bet it does.
But other than that, there is no reason to cover our heads. And I'm sick and tired as well of these imams that accuse us Western women of being naked because our heads are uncovered. And this is happening too. And this is what they're preaching in the mosques, is the immodesty of Western women and how we deserve to be treated like meat left out because we are easy prey because of our immodesty. And this is another thing, too. It's also a societal thing to me in particular, is that when I see a woman wearing the al-amira or the shela, she is looking at me. It's like her finger is pointing at me and my immodesty because my head is uncovered.
We've got about 1 minute before the break. I'm going to come back. What I'd like to do is read an article about Breitbart and about the UK. And once I'm through with that, I'd like to ask you about what you think of some of the developments in the United Kingdom. Ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, we are listening to Kel Fritzy. You're on the Beserk Bobcat Saloon. You're on BZ's radio show. It's Thursday, so it's the aftermath. Please stay tuned. Come back.
Conservative media done right. You're listening to the SHR Media Network.
Hey, it's Sean from the Sackheads radio show. Also one of the owners here at the SHR Media Network. Are you opinionated? Have you ever wanted to do your own show? Have you ever heard somebody like the Sackheads and go, yeah, I could probably do that better? Well, now's your chance. Send me a 5-minute clip at sackheadsradio@gmail.com, and maybe you can be part of the SHR broadcasting team. sackheadsradio@gmail.com.
Times are dark. The people are misled by corrupt politicians, lied to by establishment media, and deceived by the false messages of Islam. A nation looking for direction needs a guide. It needs a man with a cane. I'm Dave Milner. Join me on Spreaker, SHR Media, Pundit Press Radio, and YouTube through the SHR Media page for a different kind of commentary on the unpleasant blind guy. Because the truth is not always pleasant.
Hey, this is Mim from Freedom Fest, the world's largest gathering of free minds. Join your friends from SHR Media at the beautiful Paris Resort in Las Vegas, Nevada, July 19th through the 22nd for 3 amazing days of liberty-oriented discussion, investment advice, and the Anthem Film Festival. It's our big 10th anniversary, featuring keynote speaker William Shatner and Freedom Fest favorites, including Steve Forbes, Jim Rogers, Lee Edwards, David Boaz, Doug Casey, Dinesh D'Souza, John Stossel, Lisa Kennedy, Grover Norquist, Peter Schiff, and many more. Don't miss out. Register at freedomfest.com for $100 off the regular registration rate when you use the all-caps code SHR Media.
Featuring right thinking from a left brain and doing the job the American maggots won't. BZ is fundamentally changing America one diaper at a time. Just when safety pin manufacturers are running out of metal for the diapers of the leftists, where the speech is free, but the drinks are not. The bloviating Zeppelin's Beserk Bobcat Saloon can be heard every Tuesday and Thursday night, commencing at 11 p.m. Eastern and 8 p.m. Pacific, where pushback is a requisite art form in and of itself. Let your ossicles be truly liberated when you listen to the bloviating Zeppelin's Beserk Bobcat Saloon, only on SHR Media Network. No ferrets were harmed in the making of this ad.
Conservative media done right. You're listening to the SHR Media Network.
Ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, children of all ages, welcome back to the bloviating Zeppelin's Berserk Bobcat Saloon. This is the last segment. We've been talking for the past hour to Kel Fritzy. And to Kel, I want to tell you thank you ever so much for coming on. For those who may not know, I'll wager that people are learning a lot about Islam. Now, I have an article that I'd like to read to you from Breitbart.com, and it's about a particular report that occurred in the UK, the United Kingdom. It says this: Islamists from across Europe moving to UK for freedom to practice radical Islam. And it goes like this: a growing number of radical Muslims are flocking to move from France to Britain, where generous welfare payments, lack of scrutiny from the authorities, and the ease with which families can practice strict Islam have earned the UK a reputation as a halal paradise for Salafists who are unable to secure visas for Saudi Arabia. French newspaper L'Aube reports that Small Heath, a neighborhood of Birmingham where 95% of residents practice Islam, is one of the most popular spots for French Muslims seeking a new home where women can wear the full-face veil. The garment has been banned since 2010 in France. Kel, have any thoughts about that, pray tell?
I pray for the United Kingdom.
I do too.
And what has happened, I'm just going to generalize this and just say what is happening in Europe proper. What's happening on the continent is unbelievable. And what happened in France last month with their general elections, in that Marine Le Pen was defeated and they ended up with Emmanuel Macron. Well, the United Kingdom, they're facing their general election June 8th. And they have nothing more than either cookie-cutter candidates like Theresa May of the Conservative Party, or they're going to end up with bombastic individuals who are totally pro-socialist, like Jeremy Corbyn of the Labour Party. And people who are listening out of the United Kingdom, they are very well familiar with the Labour Party and how the Labour Party under Tony Blair nearly destroyed that country about 20 years ago. It is what it is that these party leaders are acquiescing to the demands of Islam and their demands in that they allow to be practicing their culture within the country. And yes, the thing is, too, is that the French general elections, if Marine Le Pen had been elected, the United Kingdom would have been swamped with those who were fleeing France, and they would have come into the United Kingdom. The United Kingdom is all incapacitating themselves, and the United Kingdom is also asking for its own demise. Now we see what's happening on the border between France and England, the Calais border, the Calais Bridge, the tunnel. They're all of these Mohammedans are congregating in Calais and crossing through the tunnel, or what they call the channel, and entering the United Kingdom. And the United Kingdom is welcoming them in. And Theresa May is another one who is a globalist. She's a globalist. She is not interested in protecting the interests of the United Kingdom. As a matter of fact, she is opening up a debate once again about Brexit. The people spoke last year. They spoke. They said no to Brexit, and Brexit, of course, is the exit vote to leave the European Union. Now, if Theresa May is reelected, she's going to renegotiate a vote to ensure that Brexit it's going to be a null and void point. And that means that England, the UK in particular, will be under the dictates of the European Union, right? And the European Union is leading the parade in terms of the migrant issue. This is why the Islamists are so excited in France, is that they see this general election coming up, and they see Theresa May in the headlights of their ambitions. And this is going to create a whole lot of problems for the United Kingdom once again. I'm fearful that Theresa May is going to renege on the will of the people. And their adamant, it was a people's vote. It was a democratic vote. And people said no to the European Union, and thus they Brexited. I'm terrified as to what Theresa May will do if she is offered another term as the Prime Minister of that country.
My first thought about the European Union is, number one, everyone is made to dance out of Brussels. An interesting video that I just saw recently, earlier this week, is this. I saw Angela Merkel on a stage. I don't know where it was, but Macron was right next to her, just a few feet away. Someone walked up to Merkel and handed her a British flag. She looked at the flag and then laid it down, because as far as she's concerned, she's not German. She's a globalist. She's someone much larger than that. My first thought to the European Union is, you deserve everything you're going to get. And boy, are you going to get it. You think the terrorist actions are done? They are not. They're just beginning. Then I stop, I come back, I take a breath, and I say, no, we can't give up. We absolutely must continue to fight. This is the time when we say, thank God for the Atlantic Ocean in between these two massive chasms of philosophy. But we all know that what happens over there is going to come over here. It's already visited terribly in 2001. And I'm afraid that especially GALPs, guilty overeducated white people, like Merkel, Macron, and all the leftists, all the Democrats, they're not going to be happy until more people are killed. And they're not going to be affected until their personal families are affected. And they're purposely kept at a distance from the rabble, the proles, the groundlings, the serfs, etc. So I first want to distance myself, but then I think, we can't go. We can't let that go. We have to continue fighting, because that shite is coming right here, right now.
And it must, unfortunately. And it's not by our own recognizance that it is. It has been brought to our shores, and we have every right to protect ourselves. And if it does come right down to combating the issues of what is going on in terms of encroachment within our societies, then we have every right to protect ourselves. And this European Union president and what he is doing in terms of infiltrating into sovereign nations, and I got to pop up, sorry, and what he's doing to infiltrate sovereign nations in Europe in particular is irreprehensible. There's one country standing up right now, and that's Poland. And Poland is thumbing at the European Union and saying, no, we are a sovereign, and we are going to run our country as we see fit, and that includes not taking in a lot of migrants. We are so sick and tired of being ruled by the European Union. And this is unbelievable. This is happening in a sovereign country, ladies and gentlemen, Scotland and Ireland and England, and what's happening on the continent, what's happening in France, Italy, Greece, what's happening in Sweden, what's happening in Norway and the Czech Republic, what's happening in Denmark. It's unbelievable to us that this is what we have come to. We are sovereign nations. We do not have to be ruled by an overbody, a global body, a global body. This is your country, and you do not need to be dictated to by the likes of the European Union. And we do not have to be dictated by the lobbies that insist that we take in X amount of migrants into our respective countries. We have a right to protect ourselves and our sovereignty, and we have a right to be nationalists and protect our borders. As Michael Savage says, borders, language, culture. Yeah.
Let me continue to, if I could, read a little bit more of this article because it's rather illuminating, especially the difference, what's becoming apparently the marked difference between the UK and France. Earlier in May, there's a guy named Kareem, a 30-year-old Muslim convert, spoke at his 10-year-old daughter's school to explain the family moved to Britain seeking freedom. The children were not aware that in France, girls are not allowed to wear the veil at school or that there are no halal dishes in the canteen. They were shocked, he said. And the threat of Brexit accelerated the Salafist exodus to Britain, according to Hussein, who stated that there are around 100 families living in Small Heath who have moved from France, at least 300 in Birmingham. The migrant, described by La Orbs as a pillar of the community in Birmingham, said other UK hotspots prized by Salafists, such as Luton, Leicester, and a number of suburbs in London, have seen similar movements. Britain has received an influx of Salafists from across Europe, reports Lobes, noting Salafists from across Europe, especially from Paris, Roubaix, Marseille, Bordeaux, Belgium, the Netherlands, and Spain, have migrated to the UK. The magazine tells readers that from Muslims in the UK, listen to this, life is cheap, unemployment is low, and mosques and madrasas are plentiful. Goody for the UK.
Amen to that. And I say that with the tongue firmly planted in cheek.
Yes. Can you tell us?
It's amazing.
I know what it is, but can you expand upon the term Salafist and what their belief is? Their much, much more stringent beliefs?
Oh, my goodness. The Salafists?
Yes.
They follow the true teachings of Islam, and I mean the pure form of Islam. The Islamic State, they are following the doctrines of the Salafist of Islam, and that they are very much abiding by the true form of Islam. They believe in the word of Muhammad as spoken to him through Allah, and Muhammad being the perfect man. Salafists believe that whatever Muhammad said shall be done and shall be conducted. And everything in that evil green book, the Quran, the chapters, the verses, the surahs, the hadiths, those are the words of Allah as presented through Muhammad, and they believe in every single word. There is no reformation in Islam, we know that, but the Salafists, it is a very stark chapter. It's a very stark. It's well, how should I put this? The Salafists, they're not the ones that are going to be standing around and defending your rights and freedoms. They're the ones that are going to be standing around and waiting in line to overtake your rights and freedoms. The Salafists believe in the caliphate, and the caliphate is on people. It's on right now. We're seeing that. The Islamic State, everybody is familiar with the Islamic State, but where's the Islamic State getting their marching orders? They're getting it from Salafism. And there is infighting amongst all sects within Islam. You have the Sunnis, you have the Shia, and you have the Ahmadiyans. But Salafism is the most stark and most prescribed sect of Islam, in which it does indeed follow right down the wire the words of the perfect man named Muhammad. And it's dangerous.
You made a very important observation that I submit that almost no one in politics, unless perhaps they come from the military, a military background in the United States, but you mentioned there are two primary sects in Islam that very few people kind of put together and assemble. There's Sunni Islam. That's ISIS. They hate Iranians who are Shia. Sunni Arabs were responsible for 9/11. Iran is Shia, the largest number of Shiites in the world. Saudi Arabia is mostly Sunni. Shiites are a minority there. Syria is mostly Sunni. ISIS, what people call ISIL or Daesh, they are Sunni and they are Wahhabist. And they're all very striated, and you must know to whom you're speaking and their background to understand what it is they want and what it is that they believe. And people do not take into account seriously to whom you're speaking and to what sect they belong.
Another thing, too, is that the Salafists, they don't believe in a reformation of Islam. You would never, ever approach somebody that follows the doctrine of Salafism and insist that they try to reform the Quran, like the way, as a Christian, I follow the reformed version of the Bible. I follow the New Testament. You would never see anybody within the Salafist movement trying to reform the Quran. That will never happen. And they also take a high umbrage to a secularist in Arab countries or countries in the Middle East in general. We had seen what has happened with Saddam Hussein. He was taken out via Arab Spring. Thank you so much, Hillary Clinton. We saw what happened to Muammar Gaddafi in Libya, a secularist who was trying to reform. He was taken out. Thank you, Hillary Clinton.
Exactly.
We see secularist leaders trying to engage in a form of modernity and joining the 21st century. Well, back then, I guess it would be the 20th century in some cases. But all the same, Salafists do not like that because, like I say, they believe in the true form of Islam, in Islamic State, and I like Daesh. ISIL drives me crazy because that is the Levant. The L in ISIL is pertaining to Levant, and I don't like Levant because that encompasses a geographical territory that includes Israel. So I prefer Daesh myself, and they don't like Daesh. They see that as a huge insult. Amen. But this is exactly it, is that whenever there are reformists out there that are trying to engage in a sense of people just living their lives and quietly practicing their religion, they're taken out. It is exactly what it is. We cannot escape the fact that Islam is what it is. It's the Islam. It's the Islam. And this is why this doctrine must be defeated, and why it must be defeated within our Western countries, because they are infiltrating us. The jihad is on the march, and they are they are infiltrating, like I say, whether it be civilizational, like the Council on American Islamic Relations or the Muslim Student Association, or whether it be in politics. There are politicians in the United States that have taken their oath of office on a Quran as opposed to the Bible. This is what they are doing. This is a death by 1,000 cuts, people.
Yes,
if we do not confront Islam for what it is, we are going to be doomed, and our children will hate us.
It's an incredible conundrum, and when what we're not doing is we're not taking into account what these people are telling us. They don't mind telling us to our faces exactly what it is that they want to do. We don't understand them. That's, in my opinion, the biggest problem. There's 1.5 billion Muslims in the world. Sunnis, the greatest number of them. Shia, they're about 10%, I think, of our Muslims. And globally, their population of Shia is about 154, maybe 200 million, right around in there. And then the bulk are Sunnis. But I'm staggering here. I've got about 8 minutes left. I've got one more article that I want to read before we shut down the show. Again, folks, you're listening to Kel Fritzy on the SHR Radio Media Network, and you're listening to the Bloviating Zeppelins, Beserk, Bobcat, Saloon. Here's an article that I'm going to read, and I'd like your take on it because it's occurring here in the U.S., so we're already seeing the effects of what Your Motion 103 is like, except this now is taking place in Minnesota. The headline reads this way: Minnesota retreats from ban on female genital mutilation. Refugee associates say the bill is overly harsh. In Minnesota, the state's Democratic leaders, imagine that, Democrat leaders, are perplexed by whether to advance a bill banning the barbaric third world practice of female genital mutilation. After first passing the bill unanimously in the State House last week, lawmakers are now having second thoughts about whether to continue pushing the bill through to the governor's desk, according to a report in the Star Tribune, or what they call the Strib. The bill's GOP sponsor said her colleagues in the Senate have gone wishy-washy on the bill due to, here we go, you'll recognize this, Kel, due to pushback from certain segments of the refugee resettlement industry, which is very powerful in Minnesota, getting paid millions of dollars in federal money annually to distribute Somali refugees throughout the state. The bill would crack down on parents who submit their daughters to the grisly procedure in which doctors remove all or part of a girl's clitoris, and other portions as well. But now, because they've gotten pushback, they're going to reconsider the bill. Oh, we can't be seen to be judgmental, say the Democrats. Imagine that. Your thoughts?
Unbelievable that this would even be under consideration. Female genital mutilation is indeed abuse. It's abuse.
It's barbarity.
It is a violent act against an individual. It is female genital mutilation, people. It is a violent act against a person's body.
Well, it's perfectly in keeping with misogyny. You know, at least they have to be consistent.
Oh, absolutely. And Islam is a patriarchal institution as well. We don't have to delve too far to find out how many rights a woman under the thumb of Islam has. Oh, for goodness sake, would you like to be a woman in Saudi Arabia, in which if you're raped, you're the one who is stoned to death for adultery? Would you like to testify against your rapist if you don't have at least 3 other male witnesses to say, yes, she was raped? And if you don't have your 3 male witnesses, you are accused of being a loose woman, and I'm using air quotes here, and you are the one who is condemned. Do you have any say over your body? No, you don't. Female genital mutilation, once again, is, yes, indeed, like you say there, BC, is nothing more than a misogynistic move to show power over women.
And
that's all it is.
The thing that I will never, ever, never understand is this. Leftists, Democrats, progressives, socialists, whatever the hell left kind of leaning fucktard you have that I name, they would be the first to be put to death, excoriated, mutilated, etc. themselves, and yet they're the ones that support Islam. Women, female genital mutilation. Linda Sarsour, oh, she's a wonderful person. Women's rights, where are they?
She's terrible.
Where are they?
Linda Sarsour.
Just ask them. They love her. She's a darling. She's a darling. She's the darling of the mayor in New York City, de Blasio. He's all over her. She's a great individual. The people that love...
Oh, she's horrible.
But people that love Muslims, they'd be the first ones personally affected in the negative from Islam if it came to power. I don't understand that. I don't get their support. It's rampant, stultifyingly ignorance. It's massive ignorance on a global scale, and Islam is happy because of it.
And may I just add something? And this is a call out to the LGBT, QRSTURVI, whatever, community.
Yep.
You'll be the first to go, people. You liberals that are embracing Islam.
Hell yes.
And believe me, there are a lot of high-rises in the United States of America. And enjoy the view before you're thrown off the roof.
Exactly. We got about 30 seconds left, so I have to do the decent thing, which is I have to say thank you ever so kindly, Kel Fritzy, for coming on the show tonight. Once again, please tell people where they can find you and read you and listen to you.
I am RSB Radio, Mondays and Thursday afternoons at 2 p.m. on Blog Talk Radio and other devices. All the links are in my show notes. And I am part of Global Patriot Radio, Tuesday evenings at 6 p.m., where I am. The infidels are watching. And BZ, I love you. And let's do this again, if you dare have me back, because I really enjoyed it.
I would absolutely love to have you. Ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, children of all ages, that was Kel Fritzy. And you have been listening to the Saloon, the Beserk Bobcat Saloon. It was a great time. I thank you for listening. Unfortunately...
We'll meet again. Don't know when. Don't know when. But I know we'll meet again. Some sunny day.
Ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, children of all ages, thank you ever so kindly for listening to the Bloviating Zeppelin's Berserk Bobcat Saloon here on the SHR Media Network. If you want to contact me, you'll find me on Twitter at bzep and on my blog at bloviatingzeppelin.net. My original intro music is by Possessed Tranquility at reverbnation.com.
Say hello.
Promotional consideration by Lockheed Martin Skunk Works and the Boeing Company, because if it ain't Boeing, I ain't going. Tiaras by My Little Pony. Thanks to my personal KC-135 Kettle One refueling team, with whom I will be consorting in less than an hour. Trust me on that one. Thanks for listening. Thanks for listening live. Thanks for listening in podcast. Thanks for being in chat. Take care. God bless. Be safe.
quiet down now and get some sleep.
Night, everybody.
Good night, Mama. Good night, Ben.
Good night, everyone. Good night, Mama. Good night, Daddy.
Good night, children.
Good night, Daddy. Good night, Elizabeth.
Good night, John Boy. Good night, Jim Bob. Good night, Jim Bob.
Good night, Jim Bob.
What's going on? I was asleep. What's everybody doing?
Good night,
Jim Bob.
Good night, and good luck.